a motion to declare an open meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay.
Can you tell me who seconded? Oh, thank you.
Motion carries 6-0. The Open Meetings Act is posted on the door back there on the side, if you care to look at that. Roll call, Deb.
Here.
Dr. Thor.
Yes.
Chance.
Yep.
Tim.
Yes.
Wyatt.
Yeah.
Myself here, all accounted for. Okay, number 6, approve the agenda. We have to add a number 19, which is to accept resignation of Mike Cardone, which is turned in. So we'll make that addition. Otherwise, anybody have any questions about the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda with that one revision.
I do have one question. About the Lincoln Street paving, how come that's like under the superintendent's report, not on a discussion item?
Well,
We're not approving anything,
We're not
any
gonna
motion there.
vote on
It's just-
anything. It's just an
Just give you, I'll
update.
give you an update on it.
Yep, just an update.
On
I
where
mean, we
that
can have
is.
discussion, but it just won't be an action item.
Gotcha.
So is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so first and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Motion carries 6-0. Number 7, approve the consent agenda. Start with the minutes from last meeting. Well, in my packet, have any minutes? Oh, there they are. If there's no questions about the minutes, we'll go on to the financials. There's nothing there, we'll go to the claims. Looks like they must have left the door open on the greenhouse.
They did get a new plastic sheet over that last fall, you know, and I don't know if that's necessarily intended to make a great big difference in,
Propane goes up 50%.
usage. Yeah.
If you go back to the corn burner, Tim said he'd volunteer the corn burner.
Not shovel corn.
I'll bring you all the digested corn you want.
Corn cobs, burn corn cobs.
Cow casserole.
So the bus training, is that gonna be a big increase in cost for us? I mean, CDLs are going crazy high.
Yeah.
To get one.
We just don't have the volume of drivers really for,
A new employee will probably be a lot more expensive, but just to get re-upped,
Yeah.
maybe not so bad.
you know. And there was, just as COVID hit, there was a new required, 2-hour training, that we had to pay for, and then they suspended it during COVID training. I mean, so there's, I can't even tell you for sure if some of this training is for that new UNK training for one of our new drivers, that might be in there as well. And I say UNK because they're the ones that house the school transportation safety training.
Any questions on this? Now, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
It's first and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries 6-0. Okay, are students here, or are we gonna push that back?
We're gonna push that to next month. They have a meeting in the morning, so they wanna present it to the ladies tomorrow.
Okay.
So likely April.
Okay. Does anybody want to speak at public comment? Okay, hang on. We're now at the portion of our agenda set aside for public comment. Each person wishing to address the board will be recognized by the board president. Also, each person wishing to address the board will be allowed only one opportunity to do so this evening. We request that you limit your comments to 5 minutes or less, and we'll advise you when that 5-minute time period is elapsed. Please remember that this is a public meeting for the conduct of the business of the Plainview Public School District. Offensive language, personal attacks, and hostile conduct will not be tolerated. You should be further advised that there is no legal protection for any comments that are made. Brooke, do you want to speak?
I was glad to see the public notices, or the public comment period made it back on the agenda, gone for a few months, so glad to see it was back. I just want to read to you a certain part of the public notices law. I don't know if everybody's got a chance to read it or not. An agenda maintained at the Office of Public Body for public inspection must be kept continually current and may not be altered later than 24 hours before the scheduled commencement of the public meeting. A public body may modify an agenda to include items of an emergency nature only at such public meeting. That was it.
All right, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay. Move on, discussion items. Number 10, review board policy 605.03, 605.05, 605.07, and 605.50.
And these are all, as you noticed in your table of contents, these are about alternative programs. So anything that would vary from the specific requirements, credits, and such for primarily for high school students towards graduation. If we have circumstances as determined by the administration, primarily Mr. Schmidt, that warrant an alternative method of programming to help a child get to the finish line, to help a student get to the finish line, who otherwise, just for whatever reason, whatever the circumstances might not be able to navigate the general requirements. So it's kind of a pretty high threshold. So these policies are rarely used or needed, but they might be. So Mr. Schmidt would probably be able to speak to any of them, or if you have any questions, as far as I am concerned, as far as I know, the language in all of these is still appropriate, pertinent.
So the one on the expelled students, where you're supposed to be able to give them classes after school or whatever, does that mean we have to furnish a teacher for that student after hours?
It's talking expulsion, so you're looking long-term, so anything that's gonna be over 20 days of expelled. So haven't had one of those since I've been here, but.
But we'd have to hire somebody to do that.
You can do that, but it's looking at like an Apex system where they could do it online, and then if they have questions, they can contact you. So whether we set it up that way, or if we would hire somebody to come in and meet with them at night, those would be the different options.
Anybody else have any questions on this? Okay. Board development. Section, or page 94 to 96. comments on what we read?
Which class school district are we
We're class 3.
free?
Most school districts in Nebraska are class 3s, which are any school district with territory having a population of more than 1,000 and less than 150,000 inhabitants that maintains both elementary and high school grades. So if you're a community, a school district, anywhere between 1,000 and 150,000, which encompasses the vast majority of school districts. Omaha's in a class all by themselves, so is Lincoln.
So do we do this census thing? They talk about?
Which section specifically, Mike, are you looking at?
Well,
We,
you know, 95 at the top,
yeah.
school census duty to take.
Yeah,
That's all people in our district. and
yeah, so,
students.
you know, we quite essentially just, you know, through our, you know, public notifications of families, making sure essentially, you know, we're your school district. If you live within the district, we're your school district. Here's, you know, contact information. Here's the information you would need if you have a child that is of mandatory age.
How do you know when somebody moves in and out of the district?
Well, we don't. Folks have a responsibility to notify the school district. I mean, most people understand the compulsory education laws and, but yeah, folks could come and go. And I'm sure that happens to some degree.
I didn't realize that we were required to transport parochial school kids if we ran a route.
Yep.
Anyone else have anything on it? Okay, we'll move on to.
I do have, if I can interject, you know, we've got, you know, good information for NASB that does help, I think, school board development, and, you know, this binder is, you know, has lots of different sections and terrific information in it, and some, you know, specific information with regard to maybe, you know, the superintendent evaluation, chain of command, information about public comment, code of conduct, job descriptions, and so on. One of the latest ones that they also provide is called Preparing to Serve. And that's a section which I don't know that you have in your binder, but is designed for either prospective board members or new board members. Has some of the same information that you would find, you know, throughout, you know, the rest of your binder. But I think that's a good piece of information to make available to prospective board members. So, you know, I guess I'd like to provide it for you to view, and endorse, if you feel so, and then maybe push that out, or, to Melissa, who's gonna be on the ballot.
So you guys did that last time, and that
Is
was
it-
all.
Was that the call, was that the?
I don't know for sure, Deb, if it's the same document.
That was 18 hours.
That was that all pre-election or post-election?
No, I started it after I was
Yeah,
elected.
it was all after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It
That's
was
where
like
you went to all
January,
those,
wasn't it?
you went to the meetings in person, right?
I did the 18 hours on the webinar, and then I went to Kearney for a day too. Don't you remember? That was such a.
If you wouldn't have slept through the first one, you.
No, I did, the first one's when I didn't know you could take the camera off, remember? So I was the only one, 5:30 to 8:30.
I should have put a copy of this in your folder so you'd already have it, and again, it would look familiar to you. But then, you know, you can decide whether you think it's worth going
So
ahead
you'll
and.
send us an
and
email
mailing
with
out.
the-
Yeah, or I'll just have it in your packet next month.
Sounds good.
Sure. Okay, action items. Discuss and take possible action on approving a certified teacher full-time employment total for the 2022-2023 year.
So essentially, you know, the administrative team is asking you to retain our entire certified teaching staff of 34 members. Not asking you to add, not asking you to, we're not in a position, I feel, to reduce staff, so asking you to approve 34 for our FTE. I'll then be prepared to send out contract renewal notices tomorrow. to all of those staff members, which is essentially their contract for next year, which they'd all be familiar with. And require those to be back by the end of the week.
Okay, someone like to make that motion?
Yep, I'll make a motion to approve 34 full-time equivalent certified teacher contracts for the 2022-2023 school year.
I'll second. Wyatt?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Chance?
Yep.
Baxter?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Myself, yes, motion carries 6-0. Number 13, discuss and take possible action on resignation of Shirley Berniker at the end of the 21-22 school year. Self-explanatory.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Miss Shirley Berniker at the end of the 2021-2022 school year.
Second?
I'll second it.
First and seconded. Deb?
Yes.
Jim? Chance?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Wyatt?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries 6-0. 14, discuss and take possible action on resignation of Cheyenne Hanson at the end of the 2021-22 school year. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory.
I'll make a motion to approve resignation of Cheyenne Hanson effective at the end of the 2021-2022 school year.
Second.
First and seconded, myself, yes. Chance?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Wyatt?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Number 15, discuss and take possible action on offering a 1.0 full-time employment teaching contract to Brittany Beagle for the 2022-23 school year.
I'll make a motion to approve the 1.0 FTE certified contract to Brittany Beagle for the 2022-2023 school year.
Second.
And first and seconded, Tim?
Yes.
Wyatt?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Deb?
Yes.
Baxter?
Yes.
Chance?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Number 16, discuss and take possible action on offering a 1.0 full-time employment teaching contract to Mandy Schlashek for the 2022-23 school year.
I'll make a motion to approve a 1.0 FTE certified contract to Mandy Solashik for the 2022-23 school year.
I'll second.
that.
Baxter?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Wyatt?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Chance?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Number 17, discuss and take possible action on approving the 2022-23 academic school calendar.
So I shared with you a fresh copy in your folder, with an adjustment. And I mentioned last month that we, essentially it's a very similar calendar to what we have every year. Start time, end time, Christmas break, Easter, parent-teacher conferences. Our routine early dismissal for professional development, we'd like to move that to Friday. We think that's a better fit. The bigger adjustment maybe on that would be an everyday 2 o'clock versus an every other day 1 o'clock. And every Friday 2 o'clock dismissal, so hour and a half early every Friday for PD and or classroom or teacher work time. End of the week, closure, clean up, prep for the next week before they go home for the weekend. Hour and a half, so that 2 o'clock versus a 1 o'clock. So provide some consistency to that, to the early dismissal. So Colin, Jen, and I kind of, batted this around a little bit a few times over the past month. We knew we wanted to go to Friday. I think I shared that with you last month. But whether it's in every other, like first and third, right now we're first and third Wednesdays. We looked at shortening that amount of time that we'd have for PD, but to go to a consistent every Friday, 2 o'clock. So that's a significant adjustment. So that's what we'd like you to consider.
So what happens if they get that thing pushed through the legislation where they it so we don't start school until after Labor Day and we get out before Memorial Day.
Yeah, that's highly unlikely to happen, Chance. That bill gets brought up every year, and
I would be for it.
Yeah.
I think it's stupid that we start in the middle of August.
The reason that the primary reason that doesn't make it through the unicameral is most senators in Nebraska believe in local control. They believe that you should decide when Plainview Public Schools start school, not the unicameral. And you should decide when the school year is over, not the unicameral, including senators from, beyond Tim Greger, who is our senator. So, that does get brought up every year. That model fits for some school districts, and those that it fits for, that's what they choose.
So how come it doesn't fit for us, I guess what I'm asking.
Well, that's for you to decide.
We should go 6 days a week.
I think we should start at 7 in the morning and then get out at 5 and call it good.
Go 4
4
days a
months.
week.
Yeah,
Go
4 days a week.
What does Randolph do? They don't have Friday, do
They
they?
do 4 days a week, but
They
they
start
do
that
have
day.
some, there's a few days in there they go a half a day on Fridays to get their hours.
Do they start early and go later?
No, I don't think they really do so much of that, but, longer days,
They probably start at like 8 and go to 4 or something.
yeah, I can't tell you.
I know I had a cousin that he went to school at St. Helena or something, they got out every Friday, they went to school Friday.
So this will still give you about, 2 or 3 hours for professional development, even though you're getting out later than it was before. That's still enough time to get done what you think you need to do.
Time to get to the lake.
Yeah. On a Friday.
That played no part. It's about the same amount of time PD wise, 1.5 hours every, once a week versus, 2.5 hours, twice a month, I guess, so.
I can see it
it's-
being less disruptive from
It,
experience.
it's pretty comparable. I guess, yeah, we thought that. We liked the idea, the consistency of it.
Consistency.
Fridays, oftentimes, Friday afternoons, oftentimes not the most productive, academic time, to be quite honest with you. That's just the reality of it. And if we're looking at Fridays, not having our seniors in the building, it lends itself just a little more to having a bit of an alternative schedule. Every period, for example, in the high school is just gonna be shortened a handful of minutes. They might not hardly even notice, but, not.
What's the rules or whatever, like, what qualifies as a full day of school, like
Yeah.
how late do you have to go?
Yeah, the Rule 10 isn't based on, what schools are required, time, it's not based on days, so that's a bit of a misconception, do we get to count this as a day? Well, we're here long enough, does it count as a day? We're not required to have a number of days, we're required to have 1,080 hours. Even in this, so superintendents calculate number of hours when we put a calendar together, how many hours are we here times here, minus the days that we have early dismissals. And you generally schedule 1,200 plus hours. You're required to have 1080, you generally schedule 1,200 plus, this has well over 1,200. So there are always days built in, we often get asked that question, how many snow days do you build in? We don't really build in any snow days, we just have well over the minimum required number of hours built into our calendar. And so if we start to have, as we did a few years ago, 6 and 7 plus snow days, well, we have to calculate how many hours we didn't meet in school, take that off of our total. Are we still above 1080? Do we need to make up any days? So we've had those conversations going back a couple of years on, how we're doing on hours after we had snow day number 6, a couple of years ago, for example. We were still above. You can always expect to make them up because, a snow day is a teacher contract day. That's a paid day off, and some school boards are of the mindset, we've got a contract for 185, if we have a snow day, we just go tack that on at the end of the year. And some school districts do that, and those are local decisions.
So could you do it to where, like, you come around to May 10th, we haven't had a winter like this, and you're like, we got 1,080 hours, and we're calling it good on Friday.
You know what, Chance, we have every May, teachers are always like, can we just tell them they don't have to come back tomorrow? Because the energy of the school district and of the children, you know, starts to become more and more difficult to manage in May, as you might expect. So we think about that and dream about that towards the end of the year, about every year. Gosh, it'd be nice to just tell them, go ahead and pack up, have a good summer, you know, but we're usually, you know, have a couple of weeks to go yet. But you certainly could. Once you get to 1080, you're legal.
So like how many hours we have last year?
Oh, I don't know that number off the top of my head, but we were in the, cause last year, how many snow days do we have? About 3 or 4. We were probably 1150 plus, somewhere between 11.5 and 1200.
I just feel like that's overkill, isn't it, kinda?
Well, do we wanna meet the minimum?
C's get degrees.
You need to finish in the middle of a chapter too and not finish the
Yeah.
chapter. I mean, if it's gonna take another week, 10 days to finish that chapter, you don't just wanna, that's not important, go home.
Yeah, and we honestly wouldn't be able to really do that, it's just cause teachers do have to have closure in certain things, so we wouldn't do that, but often there are days
But
in
you
May.
could get to like the end of April or middle of April on our April board meeting and say, hey, we're tracking to have 1,200 or whatever hours, we should cut a couple days off, right?
How's that follow with the teacher contracted out?
Well, they're contracted for the full hours, so you're gonna pay them, huh?
Teachers are contracted by days, not hours, so they're contracted for 185, so they would essentially be well over the 1080. So this year, for example, we've had a snow day and a late start, so we'll be well above the minimum standard of 1080 contract, or I should say contact hours with kids. But you're also gonna have most of your teachers that are gonna be at their 185, which is what you've contracted them for, is 185 days.
So you're telling me these teachers are gonna get mad if we tell them they got 5 days off?
I don't think so,
But
no.
your district patrons might get mad if you let them have the day off and they gotta pay them.
Yeah.
I doubt it.
Heaven forbid.
Yeah.
How many days did this add? Did it add a couple days to the end of school by going to the Friday?
No, it's still comparable in number of contact hours with students, still 185.
They went to more days but less hours per day than what we were doing by every other week. Right?
It's
School-
just
school's out.
shifting and
Wednesday
adjusting,
is
you know, the
down
hours a
at
little
9,
bit.
Down at 2.
Yeah, so it's not quite as much. What are you gonna do with your seniors that go out and work on Fridays? Are they gonna be off earlier than that, or do they just kind of pick a quitting time that works for them anyway, or how's that going?
With the 2 o'clock dismissal, what you're talking
Yeah.
about. The way we have it written in there now is we want them to get 6 hours, so really that 8 to 2 is what they would be doing. But those that have something last period of the day, we would probably have them come in. I've also looked at switching our first period and last period around, so that way they could come in the morning and get that taken care of and then just go to the work site and they don't have to come back at the end of the day.
Some of those kids have to come back to the end of the day.
Yep, for practices or whatever it
Yeah,
might be.
yeah.
Those that are in speech, like Jocelyn, comes back at the end of the day for practice, but that's also on them. They communicate with the person that they're working with, hey, I gotta leave at this time, or if they're gonna be gone. So really, it's not gonna affect them that much, cause they're already doing that communication piece.
Probably actually brings the rest of the high school students more in line with what a senior's number of hours looks like on a Friday, as Mr. Schmidt says, you know, they kinda, when he sets those, work-based learning scenarios up, I mean, an 8 to 2 is the range that we kind of expect. We hope they're not cutting them loose at noon, but we also don't expect that they're keeping them to 3:30. But they all could be a little different, depending upon where they are and what they're doing.
And some of the kids might wanna stay, they might
Yeah.
enjoy it as much, which is fine. Anyone else have any questions about the calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the academic calendar for the 2022-2023 school year as presented.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been first and seconded. Dr. Thor?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Ryan?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Chance?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Number 18, discuss and take possible action on setting classified wages for 2022-23. Dr. Earl passed out, I guess you could say our committee met before this meeting, and we all kind of came in with an idea of what we were thinking. Dr. Earl had several ideas, options, and I think we were all actually fairly close in what our committee was looking at or thinking about when we got here. So it wasn't too difficult of a job for us to come together on this. You know, as always, when you do this kind of thing and adjust some salaries and then not all of them, there's gonna be some people that are gonna gain more than others and some people that aren't gonna gain as much. It might feel a little bit slighted, but I think this whole thing, everybody's gonna get a pretty good increase. Be fairly happy with it for the most part. And we have in the past 2 or 3 years adjusted some individual groups or individual employees and given them raises and salary increases because we thought they were out of line. And some of those probably maybe aren't gonna get as much now, but we feel like they already got a pretty decent increase a couple years ago. Just one example is the bus routes. You know, we raised that from 30 to 50 and we didn't feel like we needed to raise bus routes again. So, that kind of thing. You know, we did some of the secretaries not too long ago. So this is just basically another step in, you know, picking out a few more of the groups and adjusting. We're also trying to get that lower hourly salary up. We all know what you can get a job for in Norfolk, almost anywhere, a lot more than you can probably get paid, what you're getting paid here. We don't wanna lose our people, we keep them here. So that's part of it. Part of it is our principals volunteering to give up their pay raise this year to pass on. So what we put in front of you is 2 years increases. And we wanna get everybody up to $15 minimum within 2 years. So the first year it'll be whichever is more, a 4% raise or halfway to $15 on your salary. And if you guys, if I'm saying this wrong, jump in. And then the second year will get you the other half up to the $15, or if 4% is more, you can take the 4%. So it's a 2-year program.
In that second year, they're getting their longevity
Back. There will be no
increases.
longevity the first year.
That's why it's over 15. In the ending year, they're getting another 1 to 2% longevity.
Is there any data that you can get from like other school districts to see like what their transportation supervisor makes or technology guy makes, or I'm just wondering, like, are we competitive or are we high or, you know, low?
But I'll just give the same example I gave those guys. I talked to a guy that I know from a surrounding school district, and his wife is a para. She's been there 5 years, and he said she makes around $14.50. She's been there 5 years. So if you look at these payments, we're under that individual. So, but they are locked in at, I think he said at 3.2% increase every year. It's not, they don't negotiate, it's just every year that's what you get. And I don't think they have any longevity either. So ours will increase, apparently we must start lower, but we increase faster. I don't know.
I was just wondering, like, on the guys that are salaried, that's what I was more worried about, I guess. I have no problem upping all the paras to 15 or 16 or 20. I mean, you can go to McDonald's and get $20 an hour, split burgers. But
And I guess I don't know that I mentioned this, but everybody that's over the 15, the salary and the higher hourly wages will be a 4% this year and next year, plus their longevities. Correct?
Mhm.
Correct. So some could see a 6% raise this year, a couple of them will, and quite a few of them will see a 6% raise next year.
Yeah, you could see a 10 to 12% raise in
So
2 years.
between the two of your salary, you could potentially see a 10% raise between the 2 years.
But if you didn't get at least a 9% raise this year, you got a pay cut with inflation. That's raw data.
Hmm.
Yeah, we're trying.
I know.
You hope it doesn't average that, though, it comes back in line down the road.
Yep. So the plan that we're putting in front of you, Dr. Alt did the math on this, and so at the end of next year, it'll increase our levy by 1 cent. Is that correct?
1 cent over 2 years.
Okay. If evaluation stays static.
Evaluations stay over 700 million.
Yep. So,
That's likely, so you're looking at a penny increase over this 2-year phase to get all employees at 15 plus, or 4% each year for those already over 15 or salary, which is, since I've been here, there's not been a 4% across the board. But this is essentially, as you know, I mean, just responding to the climate of the country and economics, and supply and demand. As you mentioned, yeah, you know, chance we have people leave us to go, you know, fast food or retail or what have you. So we need to value our folks.
Typically, we've been at, did you say 2.5 to 3?
2.5 to 3.5 has been the average. There's been those couple anomalies where the board has seen fit to set wages higher for a couple of individuals to bring them in line as you saw fit again. But
How many months of the year or like days are the salaries based on?
yeah, I mean, good question. So whether you're a cook or a para, a custodian or a secretary, you're all working a different number of hours. Your paras essentially work when we have students. So if you look at a calendar and say we have 179 student days, your paras are generally working 179 days at 7.5 hours a day. Your custodians vary and they work year round. Your secretaries work slightly less than custodians. Your kitchen works essentially when we have school, minus Linda, who has a couple of weeks after and a couple of weeks prior. So they're all over.
What about, the one I'm just wondering, like, what about the Bob? Like Bob, how many,
Yeah.
does he have to, how many, I don't know, does he just
Yeah.
work school year?
Primarily when we have students that need transportation,
So I got
but
it.
summertime he spends quite a bit on maintenance and cleanup and, you know, preparation, so life is slower for him in the summer.
I just think his salary seems really low to me. Just like that one jumps out at me. I don't know what you guys think, but I think it seems low. That's why I didn't know if anybody talked to
Yeah.
another school district, if they
Yeah.
have a bus supervisor, what
Yeah,
they're
they,
making.
a lot of them do chance, but they all have unique circumstances, and so they might have a custodian who's their transportation director, so they have custodial duties, transportation duties, or a principal or an assistant principal is the transportation director, or several of them, you know, they contract it out, so, it's not that everybody has somebody specific that has the same specific responsibility, so a little hard to maybe compare apples to apples, but, essentially, if we're not transporting students, as you can imagine, you know, the rigors of the day are gonna be, you know, different. So you can just kinda probably gauge in your mind, you know, how that would change and fluctuate throughout a school year.
Like that, yeah, that's what I was wondering. You see that, Mike?
What's that?
Bob's line.
Yeah.
Is
So
that,
that
come
typo.
across?
I see it. I see it. Let me double check. Yeah, there's something that's a good catch. And of course, I go back through all of that. We know what the intent is.
The first one should be a 4 probably,
Well,
Yeah.
do it.
because there's no longevity the first year.
See,
No, I'm backwards.
Yeah.
First year there is,
22,
second year,
23.
second year should be a 4.
So, yeah, your 22-23 is accurate. Your 23-24, that 6% should be 0.
No.
Or should be, I'm sorry, 4, should be 4, yes, there's no longevity in 23-24 for that. Which will make that 2078. $54,030.
Any other comments? Sound good to you? Okay, just to make a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to approve 2022-23 classified wages as presented with the corrections.
I'll second. Wyatt?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Chance?
Yeah.
Dr. Thor?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries 6-0. Okay, number reports, 19, activity directors report.
Sorry, we have your agenda addition.
Nope, the 19,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, oh goodness. 19 is to accept the resignation of Michael Pardon for next year.
I'll make a motion to approve the resignation of Michael Pardon at the end of 21-22 school year.
Second.
And first and seconded, myself, yes, Deb?
Yes.
Thor?
Yes.
Chance?
Yep.
Tim?
Yes.
Wyatt?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Okay, now reports, activity directors report.
Speech has open house tomorrow night here. State speech is on Thursday, they're going down Wednesday. We had LJ, Brittany, Emma, Heather, Layton, Brett, Eric, Marquis, and Reagan all qualify. They were district champions, so always fun when we get to hang another golden plaque up. All-state band is on Saturday, so Mrs. Carlson will be taking 10 kids down to Kearney for that. Then March 22nd, our first track meet gets underway. March 29th, we have our first golf invite. And then April 1st, we have our home track invite, which is our big event that we have going on. We were approved to host district track on May 12th. So we will have that event that we will host
Track
as
done?
well.
Is the track done?
Track's done, yep, everything's painted, everything's done. We have to have electronic timing, so I have a timing system set up to be here for district track and for our home meet. So we should be all set for that. And then that first week of April, we have state FFA convention, so our chapter will be sending a bunch of kids down to Lincoln for that. So,
Okay.
that's what we got going on for,
Kinda slow,
yeah, just getting ready to take off.
huh? Okay, principals report.
Started with summer school. We did start the communication line with our parents in the elementary about summer school, so those letters went home with report cards today. And that'll be a constant cycle of change as needed for those students and, being required or recommended to come to summer school. And all that was spelled out in this information that was sent with them. We've been talking about some of the needs that we feel, are coming in the future for our buildings. And, you'll notice on there that it talks about, considering another teacher in the future. We have talked with the transition of Mrs. B retiring and Crystal Hoffman becoming our preschool teacher for next year, that we would like to consider 3-year-old preschool. And if we don't hire a full-time teacher for that, we would like to consider having a second teacher in the 2nd grade. So we could have 2 teachers, K2. When you look at the needs, especially when it comes to the reading things that happen at those grade levels, it's really imperative for us to catch those early on, and the sooner we can catch those, the more efficient students will be as they progress through elementary school. So we wanna put that out there for you guys to start thinking about it. And then we've also talked about trying to come up with an additional para in the high school, just to be able to provide some more services for our high school students. JPP news, so right now the focus for us is to provide some more social events for our elementary students. We still are working at fundraising for our playground, but most of the activities that we have prepared for the rest of the school year are more social activities for our students. There's some things in there for you on our testing. We are going to try something different this last time around, and you'll notice on there that we have picked 4 Thursdays where we are going to run a 10 o'clock schedule, and the 2 buildings are going to try and test from 8 to 10 during that period, everybody, so we don't take as much classroom time to get through testing. You'll see our kindergarten and preschool roundup information is on there. Those letters will go out at the end of the week. And then the only other thing on here that I wanted to talk about elementary-wide is on our school improvement. One of the things that we are working district-wide is to try and provide a program's not the right word. We want to provide a consistent form of behavior management plan for K-12. And so you'll see this PBIS, and that is just one of the models that we're looking at to try and instill ways of managing behavior, so everybody is using the same behavior plan for all students. And so that's one of the things that we're really working hard now to try and instill to happen in the fall. That's been one of the requests from our teachers, is just to provide a consistent behavior management plan. And so that's something that we're working really hard at.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Did anybody else get any phone calls about that?
Pledge-a-thon?
Yes.
I've had a couple parents reach out to me too.
Yeah, they were pretty fired up.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And Chance, here was my response to them. I expressed my gratitude for them reaching out to me, and I had offered them some suggestions on ways in which their children can earn the $15, because I think that was the biggest concern, is parents felt like their students weren't being able to participate without raising $15 for the playground. And so not only did I offer ways on how they could get that $15 donation, I also mentioned to these parents that the JPP team is one of the organizations that works really hard to raise money for our playground projects, and that we would love their input on these ideas if they would come to our meetings and offer suggestions on fundraising. Mrs. Ham and I did talk about that, and when Mrs. Ham first started the Jump Rope for Heart, they were raising $4,000 to $5,000. And in the last 2 years, she's been lucky to get $1,500. So she felt like kids didn't really care about it, and so if we use the playground as a way to give back the money to something that they can take ownership of, then that's why we felt that was relevant.
Someone mentioned to me that the state of Nebraska requires the school to buy playground equipment.
I got that one.
Is that true, or is that something maybe Building and Grounds needs to look at, helping to fund out down the road? Or how, I mean.
This will be something that, yes, we will bring to you guys to help fund, but when you look at the price tag of playground equipment, it is unbelievable how much it costs. I mean, we're at $12,000 right now, and we might be able to buy a little piece to playground equipment. I mean, And I would rather work really hard to get more than just settle for something right now. And so that's why you see the JPP, even myself, being overly ambitious with finding ways to raise money.
Well, we appreciate you raising all the funds and stuff, I just wondered, is it something that maybe the school is supposed to help as well?
And I mean, we've had that discussion as an administrative team that we know that the school will have to chip in to make this project happen in the end.
Mhm. You don't know what your total price tag is?
Our goal is $100,000.
That, and we'll need to bump that by 50% at least, honestly, by the time we get to that point.
Well,
But that'll be a, budget committee decision.
we made a lot of improvements other ways.
Certainly.
Other parts of the
Yeah,
city.
it's certainly a need and very reasonable for the school district to put some funds in the budget for that.
Did you have a time frame that you were kinda shooting for?
Well, we've extended it to a 2-year process to see how much money we can raise towards this project.
Can you tell me what the pledge of, I don't know what that is, what Chance was talking about?
Okay, so we, instead of doing Jump Rope for Heart, we're doing a pledge-a-thon. And so we just ask kids to reach out, find donations to donate towards the playground. And one of the, requirements on there is that we have an hour of fun after you collect money. And we have different increments, each increment offers a prize of some sort, just like what Jump Rope for
Just
Heart
like
has
for
done in the
Jump Rope
past.
for Heart.
The only difference is that we asked kids to raise $15 to be able to participate in our hour of fun. And that's what parents are expressing a concern over. They feel like they shouldn't have to bring some money to participate in the hour.
I read your letter and I didn't take it an offense at all. The only thing as an outsider looking in, I thought maybe we should have left out the $15 minimum thing, cause I think that's what fired everybody up. Like, I think we should have just maybe give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they would raise at least that, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Just because I think that's what really,
Is there a lot of people concerned with this?
I got like 6 phone calls on Friday and I finally just shut my phone off.
Did you
Just
direct
say,
them-
call-
did you
call
direct
Mrs.
them
Hudson.
to Mrs. Hudson?
Call Mrs.
And
Hudson.
I've only had
I hadn't even
2.
seen it yet. This is
Yeah.
a bad thing. And they're like,
I
what's in
still
your
haven't
kid's
seen it.
bag? And I'm like, I don't look in my kid's bag.
Just
Okay?
call
I don't even
Mrs.
know which
Hudson.
kid's
Yeah.
bag is
That's
I
which.
mean, that's what I
That's
would
what the note
appreciate you to do, is have people reach out to
Yeah,
me
so she can
when
answer
you
the questions.
get those phone calls. Because like I said, Mrs. Ham and I did talk several times about this, and, we just felt like if kids couldn't get $15 from friends, family, neighbors, or people at school, then that's different, but we really want kids to make an effort to be part of this,
And when is this money due?
the end of the month.
And how long have they had it?
They will get it Wednesday.
Oh, it hasn't started
No,
yet.
this was just a letter that we sent home to communicate to parents, watch for this coming, and kids will have all that stuff in their hands Wednesday. And if you do the math, okay, so if every kid were to donate at least $15, that would generate $3,000 almost for our playground project. So I know you look at these and think, oh, little amounts here and there, but they do add up.
No,
And
I agree. I think it's a good idea. The only thing like I said, though, when I read the letter, the only thing I thought is if we would've just left that part out, maybe no phone calls.
And I didn't wanna mislead people, and when they asked, why isn't so-and-so part of it? So we put that in there.
Darned if you do, darned if you don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes a free will offering is bigger than what you ask, but you never know, either.
Well, those that are motivated by the incentives will bring more, but Mrs.
Right.
Ham said there are very few kids who raise over $100 for Jump Rope for Heart now.
Well, they've been doing that one since I was a
Uh-huh.
guy
It was hoops for
doing
her
that.
too, but sometimes.
I just went to my grandma's. Got one donation.
Well, just changing the name of it might have threw some people too, they're expecting Jump Rope for Heart, now it's called something else, and
Uh-huh.
they're like, how many of these things are we gonna have,
It's not unusual, I mean, when I was teaching, kids did not bring money.
Yep.
And the other kids came back with the prizes, they
Mhm.
didn't, but they might have a handful of one, and it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, times are tight right now, too, I think.
That's what, like, everybody kept telling me, record gas prices. That was like their next thing out of their mouth. And I was just
We got prom here in 2 weeks, so that'll be exciting.
Oh, prom, I said problem.
No.
Maybe both. at the same
We'll
time.
have the promenade, we'll have dinner, dance, and then post-prom's gonna be doing stuff. We did make a couple changes. We're gonna breathalyze every student when they come in at the beginning. If a student leaves the dance, they don't get to go to post-prom. So I mean, once kids are here, we're keeping them here. If they leave, that's on them. They can go do whatever the heck they want, but they're not coming back in. So, kids wanna be a part of it. They have to stay the whole night. They have 30 minutes to get from Mary's back up here to the post-prom, and then they have all kinds of stuff set up. They post-prom takes over after that,
So what are the rules nowadays on bringing dates from other towns or underclassmen or whatever? Is there?
It's the same as it has been, so I mean, anybody in school here, junior and senior, can ask an underclassman to go. And then anybody who brings a date from out of school has a form that they have to fill out, get signed by the administration from the other school, and then bring back, and I think those are due Friday this week, is when they have to be turned in.
So does that breathalyzer, does that also catch like if somebody's out there toking it up or not?
I don't think so. It's just your
I'm just wondering.
regular breathalyzer.
So the kids from out of town will be subjected to that too?
Anybody that's going in.
So basically, they can smoke a bunch of weed and still go to the dance, but they can't drink a beer, right?
You wanna try them out, I guess?
What?
Backwards from when you went.
Yeah, yeah.
Times have changed.
Well, I just was thinking with this, you know, we've had a kid test positive, maybe we need to do something, crack down on the green stuff. I mean,
Alumni Weekends coming up first weekend in April, so we have all that. Will be through the building, alumni volleyball, basketball, that stuff. And just to give you some update on school improvement stuff we're doing, we've reached out to a company, Branching Minds. It's a database company that we're gonna look into using. We gotta come to you guys probably with how to fund it, just cause the training is gonna cost more than what we thought. But really, it's for our interventions and for our MTSS process, so it allows us to put all of our testing scores, all of our data, behaviors. You can document how many detentions kids have in schools, all that stuff, and so teachers have access to it. I know in the elementary, it makes it easy to build in interventions. At the high school, we're gonna have an intervention time built in as well, and teachers are in charge of a group of students. So really, it just puts everything into one place, and it gets our teachers more resources for interventions for kids that need it. PBIS, Jen hit on that. That's behavior that we're looking at, K-12. Math, elementary's piloting expressions right now. High school's just finishing up in vision, so be ready for us to come and ask you guys to get new resources for the math department. I've also had English reach out, so I'm looking at some of that too, at least on the 7-12 side of things. And then second step is a K-8 counseling curriculum that Mr. Peter and Mrs. Ham have asked us about, just so we have some consistency through the elementary. It also does a large part of social and emotional health, which is something that we were looking into, that we wanna make sure we're meeting all the needs of our students. So, might have a little bit longer discussion items next month, heads up. So, that's it from us.
is it true that like the ACT is gonna be online this
We
year?
are taking online ACT this year.
I heard some concerns from some students and teachers that was
Yep.
being changed. Is there a
There's a lot
reason
of
why
people
that's being
concerned.
changed?
Because every test that I have taken to get my master's degree to get into college has all been online, so kids need to learn how to do it.
I think they're worried about time constraints and things like that.
It'd be
It'll all
We
be the
knew,
same.
but
Yeah.
The timing of the test and all that stuff is the exact same. We'll be hosting it over at the library as the plan, and we'll have Tom there to make sure that any technical difficulties are taken care of, things of that sort. So really, it's not any different, it's just instead of having a pen and a paper, they're taking it online just like they've done the math testing.
so can you like Google the answer online then too? or-
Nope, you have a lockdown browser, so it only allows you to go into where you're taking the test, and it's secured, and if you tamper with it, you get kicked out, so.
Give away all your secrets, Chance.
It's good trying.
to be an adjuster, it's an open book test, and so you just use the computer and you just open like 5 browsers, and
That's what I did with my test.
they tell you to do that.
5 or 6.
Okay, thank you too. President's report, I don't have too much, it seems like every time you turn around, we're sending some students to Lincoln or Omaha or State, and this or that, it doesn't make any difference whether it's music or speech or sports or what. I just think, as a school, we've got a lot of good teachers and coaches and students that go above and beyond to get there, and I just appreciate that, and, how it makes our school look, and I'm proud of them. So, that's all I have, so we'll move on to superintendent report.
Okay, I have a couple things that aren't listed, that are bulleted there for you, and certainly, yes, Brooke is right. Agenda's not to be changed unless unless the board determines it's of an emergency nature, and that is for you to define. And so to adjust the agenda to add Mr. Pardun's resignation, while that might not seem like something that would be necessarily of an emergency nature, could that wait till next month? Maybe so. However, we want to get in the game to find a health and PE teacher. There's currently 31 school districts in the state of Nebraska that are searching for a health PE teacher. Does you taking action on that resignation tonight necessarily unlock our ability to do so? Not automatically. So yes, that is something that it is a behavior of the board that has to happen very, very sparingly to adjust the agenda. But that was we got that resignation today. Thought we'd just go ahead and move on it. And Mr. Schmidt is already deep in the search to find a replacement for that position.
Why do we have to approve a resignation? Our contract's over anyway. I mean, there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah. I mean, so it's a bit of a formality, no doubt, so, cause contracts do automatically renew, but when you have a resignation, it just frees up the legalities of binding agreements. So in our current teacher positions, we've had a number of resignations this year. Compared to last year, we had one. I mean, it fluctuates, things do. It was pretty sweet spring last year, when we just had to hire one teacher. But this year, as you know, and you've been approving these over the past couple of months, but we did make so if we have somebody in-house that is certified for a position that we have open due to a resignation, and we feel they might be a good fit, we may approach that person and see if they're interested in a reassignment from what their current position is. So our preschool position, so we're not hiring a preschool teacher because we have Crystal Hoffman on staff, who we had a mutual interest between us, who we thought, gosh, she was a para in that classroom, we sure think she'd be a good fit, approached her about simultaneous, yeah, she's thinking about it, and so we're very excited to reassign Crystal Hoffman from first grade to that preschool position, because preschool is a different animal, runs by a whole different set of rules, and so it can oftentimes be a little more complicated maybe to find somebody with an early childhood endorsement who understands the complexities of Rule 11 early childhood. So we're happy to have that. That frees open a first grade position, right? So then we continue to look in-house, and maybe Jen has conversations. So Carissa Eichberger, who we hired last year with ESSER funds, not paid by the district, but so it's a temporary position that we hired Carissa for. So Jen approaches her, they have a conversation. Carissa very excited about a reassignment from 4th grade this year, and we don't know if that was necessarily gonna be 4th grade next year, or whether she's gonna move with that class to 5th grade. So Carissa is taking that first grade position, now paid by the district, so she had a little bit of peace of mind, right? That it's a quasi-permanent position, and when ESSER funds run out, we say, sorry, this position is now, we're not gonna offer this position. So Jen is now considering where the ESSER funded teaching position will be most needed. And so we're now hiring another teacher, but not sure is it gonna be 4th grade, 5th grade, so we're and we do have several apps that came in for preschool. And then we made an adjustment to, okay, this looks like it's now gonna be a first grade position. And now it's gonna be, so we're kind of in contact with these, this good list of candidates who may have initially applied for a preschool position, that evolved into a first grade position and now will evolve again into an ESSER-funded position, that Mrs. Hodson will determine what that assignment will be. So there's a lot that can go on, that can set in a chain of events when this happens.
So you were talking about adding a teacher down the road, could this
Yes,
turn into that?
and this would help
Yeah.
attract applicants, knowing that it could be
Yeah.
more than a one-year position.
We probably had that brief conversation a year ago, when we were talking about ESSER funds, and let's hire another teacher, because that helps with the unfinished learning. In fact, we're required to spend a certain amount of money on unfinished learning, and really the best way you can probably spend that is on personnel, is on a great teacher. But yes, when those ESSER funds run out, you will have a hard decision to make as a board. Are we gonna let that teacher go, or are we going to, will the district now assume the expense of that teacher? So, that situation, that scenario still exists. But when we're hiring now for this, that'll be part of our conversation, is that this is an ESSER-funded position, and there's no guarantee that beyond this next school year, that it will be there. And so, yes, Mrs. Hodson is definitely wanting you to continue to think about that, as we move, into the next school year.
You're still gonna split that class that we hired her to help them?
I don't know if it'll be upper elementary or lower elementary, because there were needs in second grade and the fourth grade class when this
For this
decision
year.
was made last year.
Yeah.
And some of those needs still exist in both places.
So Jen will work with her staff, and whatever decision she makes, their team makes, it'll be the right one. Two schools, Cross County and Hay Center, for whatever reasons, did not choose to accept the ESSER funds, stimulus monies, and so those funds were redistributed out evenly to all the school districts. So we get an extra $525 in ESSER funds. We're also getting supply chain assistance funds for our kitchen. So these are just federal money, they're just printing money. They're sending us $15,337.25 to help us deal with supply chain problems. Now, which have not affected us dramatically to any information I've received from Linda. But Linda does a great job. If she runs into a problem, she just solves it. She gets the food here, she adjusts the menu, she makes it work. But we're gonna get this money, and yes, we do have certain things we have to spend it on. One of them is you can spend it on your milk. So we may just, for the next couple of years, just pay our milk bill. Transportation fleet, conversations with Mr. Bob McCabe. Yes, we have not replaced that big bus. There's been some times where we wish we had that big bus. So I said, Bob, you gotta get some shopping, you gotta get going on shopping. Plus, we got another one it's been 5 years, another bus that's in rough shape. So, budget committee will need to be considering that in the next fiscal year. Same with the sped van, we'll need to consider some of that. I completed our grants for ESSA, which will be $129,173. REAP will be $22,684. So those grants are done. Those monies are secured. We're $41,125 to the positive. So when we have teacher turnover, I keep track. What salary are we losing? What salary are we gaining? And oftentimes that's what happens. Oftentimes, so that's where we are right now. Classroom budgets are done through the ESU. Talked to Mr. Tarr earlier in the week. The bids, the city's taking bids for a whole lot of different streets around Plainview, and those bids came in much higher than he anticipated. He said the city is not in a position to move forward on that. I said, okay, they'll rebid it, next year, this fall, or whatever, and that conversation, can come back for consideration. And then there's your enrollment summary, meetings out of district. I'll be going to NERCSA conference in Kearney Thursday, Friday, annual conference for the Nebraska Rural Council of School Administrators. So that's the second biggest one in the state annually, because most every school district is a rural school district, and so that's good stuff in Kearney at the end of the week. Okay, and that's all I have.
How are we doing with the kids, that Spanish-speaking kids, are they still here?
They all moved away.
They're all gone?
Yeah.
We still have one in the elementary.
With the exception of one, but all the students that we had in the high school, as many as 5 at one time. That's why they call them, that's why they're migrant status population.
Solve that problem, huh?
Well, our folks did obviously just a great job, because when folks show up, you gotta serve them. And you gotta adjust on the fly. Our folks did a great job, particularly Senora Clemens. And then they go and you readjust.
All right, anybody have anything else? We are adjourned. Thank you all.